the meat and lunch sometimes.
Ja, dankjewel.
No vegetables, the teeth.
Ja. Hello. Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Teaching Lab. This is the home of the Teaching Academy, where we share and spotlight education initiations and innovations. Today, we have the Meet and Eat activity event that we organize every month here in the Teaching Lab. And I invited Raymond Roy to introduce our speaker, Laura Cipriani, today.
Thank you, Orsi. Warm welcome. My name is Raymond. I work at the same faculty as Laura in Bouwkunde. But I'm also working for the 4TU Center for Engineering Education. Might also be nice to know. Before I introduce Laura, it is nice in Bouwkunde we have the procedure that when people have the idea for a Comenius project and want to write the letter of intent, or they actually have written the letter of intent, that some people in the faculty take a look and give feedback, and also in the pre-proposal. And that was a lovely journey that we were in together, because we were talking quite intensively in the beginning on the proposal, and then it got accepted and it flew. So I am also very curious to hear from Laura what the project brings. Laura is an assistant professor in landscape architecture in the Department of Urbanism at Bouwkunde. And after your talk, 30 minutes, right, I will come back to you and we can have a bit of Q&A and discussion about the project. Yes? Enjoy. Laura?
Thank you all. Thank you, Ramon, for the introduction and also for the support at the beginning of this project. Thank you to the Teaching Academy and Orsi for organizing this nice event. We are talking about playful pedagogies, co-designing with children landscape of changes. This is a small project, and this presentation will introduce the Comenius Fellowship results for didactical and pedagogical innovation, an invitation to develop a positive attitude and emotional and artful knowledge in contact with nature to tackle the climate transition. Starting from different forms of play, the project aims to educate and engage a younger generation in climate change issues. And this project starts from the recognition that today's new generation, and in particular young people, will face consistent landscape changes during their existence. So can we create consciousness in young generation on how climate change will modify landscape and cities? Can we involve children and university students in co-designing the landscape considering climate change? In the project, students adopt the concept of play, design, and climate change, and later students themselves become actors of change, involving children in co-designing and co-creating a collective outdoor, artful, playful installation on site. So, like we said, the new generation, and particular young people, will face consistent landscape changes during their lifetime. And this diagram represents the life of a person in relation to temperature change and green gas emission in the last centuries. And as you can see, actually, we can face that the younger child born today in the Netherlands in 2020 will experience a higher average temperature at the end of his life, which means that he will face completely a different landscape somewhat. Before we go to the project of the Comenius, I think it's also important to me talk about the meaning of play in the landscape and the urban disciplines. If we go to the roots and the etymology of the words, play in etymology means dance, emotion. So something that is spontaneous, purposeless behavior. Whereas the game, on the other hand, is very linked to rationality. It involves rules. And I really like this idea of play as a dance, since the playful attitude is something that characterizes young humans since their childhood, and play is something that you also find in the animal world. These are two cubs playing. And even plants are playing, because these are some young sunflowers playing at the beginning of their life. Play is an action involving a space where the action can take place. In this famous painting by Brugge the Elder, you see over 90 different forms of game, as well as you see the city, but also the landscape where the game takes place. So the landscape architect Sorensen, in his famous garden, displays some playful elementary forms. But what is actually little known is that at the end of the Second World War, this landscape architect organized some junk playgrounds for children, made up just with soil, where children could play. So nothing was planned, and everything was left to the imagination of the children and how to use the soil. Even Isamu Noguchi, is the father of the non-directive play. So children didn't need any kind of instruction to play. If you give children an abstract, surreal landscape, they can actually interpret it, and they can make whatever they want. Imagination is ruling. An artist playing with the body in the landscape make you understand that play can happen with almost nothing. The second element that I would like to introduce is the idea of the pedagogy of playing landscape that took somewhat a role in my project. John Amos Comenius was the father of modern education. He published several books, and in particular the Orbis and Salius Pictus. And Comenius believed heavily in the connection between nature, religion, and knowledge, and in which he stated that knowledge is born from nature and nature from God. And for the first time, he actually introduced several educational concepts and innovation, including the first pictorial textbook for children. And you see here the alphabet with the animals. Another person that I have to mention is Maria Montessori. Maria Montessori is the mother of cosmic education, and in this idea of a cosmic education, the ecological view was playing a crucial role. These, for example, are some agricultural works at the House of the Child in Rome, where children learned how to cultivate the land and be in contact with nature. The Italian designer Munari, at the end of his life, dedicated his art to playing with children, and he published several books where the role of imagination was crucial for playing. This is, for example, Roses in the Salad. He chopped some vegetables and he printed them in a paper, and imagination allows us to transform even a cabbage to an imaginary island. Another landscape architect, Bernard Lassus, published the book Jeu, so game, in the late 60s. And he provided a sheet of paper with a red dot and asked people to draw a landscape. So the intention was to go to the root of imagination. You see some of the pictures and what came out from the mind of the people. In the 60s, many radical pedagogies tried to use art and play to go beyond the limits of the single disciplines. Here we are at the Faculty of Valparaiso, or think about the work of the two landscape architects, Anna and Loris Alfrin, in the Driffu village, a work that even included dance. This is the planetary dance has been performed, and this has been performed in hundreds of locations around the world. And dance is a play. Play is a dance. Segni Mossi is a research project initiated by the visual artist and choreographer to investigate the interaction between dance and graphic science with children. A very important project that was influenced about was the one by Roberto Pasini. The symbiotic Matoral installation is meant to raise awareness of biodiversity loss in Monterey. The work is conceived on the Deleuze-Guattari geophilosophy on the becoming animal, to remove the anthropocentric perspective. So children enters the door of imagination, and they become an animal. They hear like a rabbit, smell like a bear, see like a coyote. Another work from Belinda Tato is actually looking at climate change issues. She's working in Bahamas, in the islands of Extremas, and these islands will be soon affected by sea level rise. 2 papers were provided to children for dreaming the future and what they would like to change. And from these papers, they made some origami flowers that were exhibited in an art installation, and where you can see the dreams for the future. With this background in mind, my Comenius course, Climate Change as a Game, started. It was made up of 9 students, university students, coming from landscape architecture, and urban design, 28 children from the Groen van Priesten primary school, 1 teacher that was me, and another was the primary school teacher, plus parents and farmers. We started with a full-day seminar focusing on the power of play in its broader meaning: play grammar, educational theories, landscape policies, design strategies, and co-designing practices with an interdisciplinary group of speakers. Dreaming the future with children can foster an emotional knowledge to tackle the climate transition and help them shape landscapes of change. During the seminar, I asked to draw the dot of the changing landscape, a sort of interpretation of the 1970 game inspired by Bernard Lassus. So a green dot was on a white page, and people were asked to draw on climate change and landscape topics, while included a dot in the sketches. As you can see, many landscapes came out: the soil and its bacteria, the sea with the sun, fishes and wind farms, the planet Earth and its vegetation. So the climate crisis will change if we can reverse the negative imagery and transform it into a positive and emotional actions. The course had been structured into 3 parts. The first part, reading and playing the landscape, outdoor. The second part, co-designing the landscape, indoor. And the third part, co-creating the landscape, again, outdoor in a dissemination event. So, the first part, exploring and playing and reading the landscape. We worked on water and soil interaction because they are crucial in the age of climate change. We worked in Delft, in a site where the soil plays a crucial role in climate change issues in the carbon cycle. This is a cartography of the beginning of the 18th century, and on the left you have Delft, and in the middle you have this kind of black hole, and this is the study site where we worked. Like most places in the Netherlands, these were peat extraction sites that transform into polders, and peat was extracted for burning, and this has produced significant CO2 emissions. We have to also to think that peatlands store vast amounts of carbon, twice as much carbon as all the world's forests. So this is the polder that has been transformed into a rural area. It became a biodynamic farming and a natural resort. We are 5 meters below the sea level. And in this image, you actually see how it looked this place in the past and how it looks today. And if you look at today, no peat has been left, only clay soil, and that's why water has accumulated here. So water here is highly managed in the summer and during the winter, and it's a farm that adopts a 6-year rotation for achieving an healthy soil. And mowing and grazing management. An important approach is maintaining a closed system whereby livestock feed and manure do not enter or leave the area. In addition, natural elements in the area are preserved or recreated, such as natural banks and drinking pools. Mowing is a method that creates a mosaic of plots with different lengths of vegetation, where animals are there and they are the protagonist of this cycle. And that means also that biodiversity is increasing, insects are coming back, as well as the avifauna and so forth. So we've been with the kids exploring, playing and reading the landscape of sight with almost 30 kids. We gave them a sort of crown, and we asked them, what if you were a bunny, a cow, or a bird? Which plants would you collect and eat? Can we talk about vegetation and soil? So they started collecting all these elements and putting them together. And at the end, we talked about the issues, but also we made a little installation on their own. And we talked about this relationship about vegetation and soil. Another group instead worked on soil and water. And the question was, can we collect the soil and filter water? Can we experiment on soil permeability? So they collected the soil, we gave them some instructions, what to do. They pick up the soil in the bottle with the water, and they actually worked out. They saw that the water was purified and was actually different since the very beginning. And then, after the scientific experiments, we asked an artistic product, so giving back somewhat this water in a different way, and they did it very well. They returned the water to the lake, where they started all this process. The second phase was dealing with co-designing the landscape in class. And in this case, we have been back to the class, and we provided a kit of the area to play. As you can see, this kit is actually representing the site where we have been working with. And the kit had some elements that they could play and add and put on it and talk with our students. At the beginning, we also tried to understand the attitude of kids on climate change with the red dot of the climate crisis and the green dot of the climate hopes. And many results came out. Somebody is even thinking about, going to summer holidays for the future. So we try somewhat to reverse the negative imagery. An important phase of the co-design process was also to include the farmer, to make a real, consistent plan, which is a climate plan, looking at scenarios ahead, but also having a master plan that was looking at the transformation of this site in the brief term. And students co-designed together with the farmer. We came out also in co-drawing. And at the end, they came out with the idea of the installation. Third phase was actually co-creating the landscape. So university students made a climate game, a game installation on site, taking into account the inputs of the co-designing phases. This last event was called the Whispering Wilderness, and in particular, we decided to focus on the role of biodiversity to talk about the soil carbon cycles in terms of emissions, but also carbon sequestration. This is the site where it took place, the installation game. And this installation showed the living organism in the soil, on the ground, and in the air, using almost 100 wooden sticks with animal shapes arranged accordingly in a cycle, in a square, in a triangle. These were the three elements, and these were the three elementary forms, so with the three sides. So these were the elements. This was the connection and the path that was connecting these elements. This was the forest where we had another installation called The Dream, and this is actually the surrounding landscapes. So children, teachers, parents, farmers, and invisible living animals and organisms were playing to imagine possible biodiversity and soil carbon futures for the climate transition. The children went on site. With the help of a game card and a booklet, the children had to recognize living organisms and learn about the influence on the climate for emission and carbon storage. you see these three elementary forms that correspond to three habitats. The first one was between the clouds, so what is in the air, the animals in the air, and then, of course, on the earth, the animals on the earth, but also what was very important, under our feet. And in this case, we have to say that soil biodiversity is actually the variety of life that exists within the soil, including bacteria, fungi, earthworms, and termites. Just to give you an example, a teaspoon of topsoil typically contains a vast range of different species and up to 6 billion of microorganisms. So what's happening below the ground is crucial for the vegetation, for the soil, for the carbon storage. And on site, for example, we saw this path of a mole. The mole is actually very helpful to aerate the soil, and it absorbs more oxygen, which benefits the roots of the surrounding plants. So they started playing with this booklet and game, and they started going around. Even a cow showed up somewhat in our installation. And the teachers themselves were asking, what living organism is this? What's going on? And then we've been to the forest. Taking inspiration from Rousseau's paintings, The Dream, another part of the installation took place in the nearby forest. Rousseau had never seen this tropical landscape. He only used the power of imagination. And likewise, The Dream in the Forest displayed the animal's evolution that children imagined beforehand in class. The fish with the legs for drought periods, the cow that self-abstores CO2 emission as not to influence the climate, the rabbit's evolution as a butterfly to escape in the air and become a pollinator, the cow with the long legs. And TU Delft came to visit us, and we ended up the morning with a wild choreography, a sort of dance, where children had to dance imitating some animals. The music was in the jungle, and we started moving all together. It became a little bit of chaotic somewhat, and we moved along the way, and at the end we ended in the center. And this wild choreography had this playful dance, let's say, play as a dance, as a scope. And this is actually the wild team of students that were leading this process. So if we look at the pedagogical point of view, rather than delivering only a project, the course was a process. Or better yet, a project of multiple and mutually interlaced processes. The main innovative process was that TU Delft students became the children's teachers. And becoming a teacher implies gaining empowerment and learning to transmit knowledge. And if learning becomes playing, the added value is all there. And the other protagonist was the landscape, because the landscape in this place, it's actually very important. Being outdoor rather than in class can lead to a different kind of knowledge. And we involved the farmer, we involved the parents, and what is even more important is what I call the virtuous cycle of knowledge. Because TU Delft students became the children teachers, who in turn will educate the parents in a sort of virtuous cycle. And that was amazing, because there was this knowledge that was going from the kids to the parents as well afterwards. So this kind of little course was a testament to power of collaboration and pedagogical innovation involving landscape architecture and urban students from TU Delft and this primary school class. And this process was a kind of incremental process that foresees somewhat a rotation and join different expertise, because the students became actors of change in every phase of the project. At the beginning, it was only the conference and there were listeners, but then the course was intentionally designed into 3 phases where each student's expertise was valued. The first phase, the first course module, dealt with landscape issues. And so the protagonist and the leader somewhat were the landscape architects students. The second phase related to planning, and of course urban students were somewhat the teachers of, the co-teachers of their mates. And finally, the third one, it was much more linked to architectonic composition and prototyping, and so architecture students were leading the phases. So, as a result, the students became the docents of their colleagues in their specific realm in different phases. And of course, the natural world and the living organism were part of this system as well. What I want to highlight is that there is an emotional and a rational knowledge, an artistic and a scientific knowledge that needs to be taken into account as a whole. They cannot be separate. And to tackle the climate transition as a gameplay means to develop a more positive attitude through these playful and emotional participatory processes, because that's the role of it. We become actors of change if there is something positive. If we veiculate a negative message, it's very difficult to engage and to take action. And then what I want to highlight is that the course adopted what I could define the 3 levels of knowledge: a thinking, theoretical level, a feeling, emotional level, and a willing, doing level, learning by doing with your physical body in making this installation. And it's a kind of reverse project process that you find in the plants, where the thinking is in the root system and the willing is actually in the plant itself. The other element that I want to highlight is this idea of holistic and symbiotic learning and co-design with nature. So interconnection with all living and non-living beings. We could call it a pansophia. Pansophy principle is one of the most important principles of Comenius, that everything must be taught to everyone, or in his words, to all men and from all points of view, as a guiding base of education. And in this case, it's actually going into nature and understanding, taking a different perspective. But also, it's also a matter of talking about interconnections, going on site, being outdoor. Darwin, this is an image from Charles Darwin. It's actually drafting of shells in South America. And Darwin traveled the world for 5 years collecting samples, and he filled his notebooks with observation of plants, animals, geology. So he started drawing, he started being on site, going, and nature is actually a very much important teacher for our learning. And he also adopted this inductive method, so to get out from class, which is actually a scientific method. So we made some interviews, of course, to the children, and they became somewhat learners and teachers at the same time. We handed in a questionnaire to the kids before going to an installation and after to understand what they learned. So they learned actually the carbon cycle, a little bit of climate change, but also what we came out is also that play was very much important actually and positively influenced their experience of climate change. The other innovation was that our students, university students, became the teachers for children. And it really emerged that they felt this sense of responsibility and commitment to teaching that led them to learn more, to be prepared, to be a teacher, and to be empowered as an actor of change. And I made some interviews to our students, and it came out that it was a very important knowledge for tutoring the children, learning from colleagues, co-designing with children, but also self-learning, especially in the co-production phase of the installation. So the course, if we have to sum it up in a brief sentence, the course was a play, somewhat. The students became the actors of change. And what did I become? Somewhat, I became a director of this play. Because if the students become actors of change and the teacher becomes the director of this plays, my role is to create the condition for each scene and rehearse the step to play together. But when the curtains open, there is nothing other than letting the dance play take place. So you step back somewhat and you wonder how pedagogy can change. Like Shakespeare was saying, all the words stage and all the men and women are merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. So I stepped outside somewhat. Let me finish with a quote by Pablo Picasso. Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up. Thank you very much. I want to thank all the people that in different ways contribute to this little project, all the students, the teaching assistant, UDEL TV, conference, critique docents that came throughout the class, and of course the Comenius Programma and NRWO and the Comenius program. So thank you all.
Thanks so much, Laura.
I have a small video if you want. We can conclude if we still have time, I don't know. But so you get the sense of this day and what it went through. Younger generations are the ones that are most affected by climate change, and they are less empowered in making a change. Play could be actually an interesting tool to be proactive. Comenius grant is for pedagogical innovation. I got the grant and I've been setting up the course.
I'm currently following the course Climate Change as a Game. We're co-designing with children for the landscape of the future, and I think it's very interesting because they have a different perspective on things. The final installation will have some type of game element to it, and in this way we want people and children to learn about climate change in a more interactive way.
It's pretty fun, but it's hard because there's all like hints and so on that you need to find.
Ik wist denk ik niet dat er zoveel dieren onder de grond leefden. Dat vind ik wel bijzonder.
Ik heb geleerd over klimaatverandering.
It's really a pedagogical innovation that tries to empower people and learning through playing and being prepared to tackle the climate transition in a different way. Thank you.
So nice to see the movie. Yes, 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 yes. I'm taking a look at you. If you have a question or a comment or something that you want to bring up. I do have one to kick off with, and then Tuan first. Everything will be recorded, eh? So on
I'm getting nervous.
So speak out.
Laura, thank you very much. I'm a nature lover, so this really relates to my also my non-professional background. That's a side step. I wonder, how are you planning, or have you already planned to make this sustainable in the sense that it's long-lasting in other schools maybe, or in other cities, or in wherever? And maybe also in a broader context, how applicable, because it's quite a specific context, it's the landscape, it's climate, could this pedagogy maybe be implemented in other contexts also?
Yeah,
that's
thank you for
two
the
questions.
question.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that each landscape is unique. And this is crucial, I think, for the landscape side. Sometimes you find in climate change instructions or, ideas that can theoretically might be applicable everywhere. I really think this is not the case. I really think that we have to go deep in the study of a site and find specific elements for that site, which means involving the stakeholders, the farmer, the owners, the people who are living in the site, but also understand how it does work. What is actually applicable, it's actually the process. And this is the important part for me. It's understanding how I can make a methodological process in this kind of climates, children and play, and how this can be applicable elsewhere.
So consider this to be a methodology which on a higher abstract level is applicable to other contexts, right?
Yes,
yeah.
And we can have some set of conditions apart with the site, but it's actually crucial that in the understanding of the climate transition that every site is unique. I don't like the formulas.
Yeah, thanks. And my first question was about the applicability for other schools, whether you want to make it extended to other schools at the same concept.
Yeah, we didn't succeed in calling a second class. The initial idea was that we were going to have the climate game with the class that we followed all together, and a second class that did not know about anything, that was coming that day and playing with that afterwards. Unfortunately, at the last minute, they told us we are not coming. And that would be a very much interesting because we could have understood what was their learning, our learning as well, because our primary, task is that our university students are learners, but of course even the children. In the next phase, so it means from April on, we will have again the course. It will be a little bit different, and hopefully this time we will have also the second class. And that would be very important because we could understand how to implement this, even at a national scale, even with secondary schools. So, yeah, let's see.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And this ambition to reach out to a larger community of primary, secondary schools is one of your ambitions, right?
That's one of the ambitions, yes.
Yeah.
But now we are in the testing phase. We just had one small course, so.
Yeah. Natalie.
Thank you, Laura.
Keep it close to your mouth. Sorry for that. Otherwise, the College Rama people will be angry.
Find out. It's funny. My kids went to this school by incident, but I'm curious to understand how easy it was to find a school who was willing to collaborate with you, because they also have very full program, right?
Yeah, they do have full programs. Even especially we were finishing the program in July, so the installation happened in the first days of July. And I was told that the children were very tired also. So far I understood from the primary school teachers that they have really little vacations, and this is not meant for knowledge, but mainly for parking the children somewhat. So it was challenging, I think, also to involve the second class to come and play with us for the understanding. For all the other part, I think it was pretty reasonable. The teacher was very nice and helped us to organize. As we said, I was the director, so I did this in the semester before, 1 year before. So those are the times for organizing this course. I'm not the player, I'm the one that is the director of the play that step back but has to organize all this, yes. So that's the effort, let's say. That,
about finding the good timing as well.
Yes, yeah. Yes.
And will the primary school teacher be an ambassador of this journey towards other primary school teachers?
That would be very nice. She actually told me that she will help me to find a second class for the next year.
Thank you for your wonderful project. I'm Remke Klapwijk from the Delft, the Science Hub of the TU Delft. So we reach out to primary schools. And I really want to compliment you on the idea to have the children simulate that they are cows and how to explore the environment. I really love that. My question is about the parents. How did the children educate their parents, or how are the parents involved? What did you do?
I still need to have interviews to the parents, but so far in the 2 workshops on site, some parents came. So they came, of course, to supervise the class. What would be very interesting is actually to know the amount of knowledge that was transmitted to the parents and to know what they get when the children comes back home and talk to their parents. What did they understand? And how this education can actually be, mutual again. So, yeah.
Yes, Cinco, you can catch, right?
Thank you. It's a nice game. Thank you, Laura. I was wondering, since Picasso says we are all artists, but sometimes we forget how to play. So I was wondering, it's also related to the first question, if we are now focused on babies, kids, but how about adults? So probably we can use the same pedagogy to educate ourselves. So why not we start from teaching lab, teaching academy, that we can have the same games surrounding us in the future, the coming month.
So you're proposing now to all stand up and dance together?
Yeah, could be. I mean,
after the Q&A then.
Yeah, if there's already a very nice pedagogy, and it has a wonderful outcome from our kids. But how about ourselves? We forget, right? We forget already how to deal with the nature, thinking of the nature, thinking that way. So I think it's also very nice for us. So expanding not only for kids, but also for us. I think this would be a wonderful journey, at least for me. I believe also for everyone here.
Yeah, this is very important, yes, how to play in each of the ages, because we are actors of change as well in our life, and we are facing climate change in the years to come. We need to get outdoor and be in contact with landscape and know some climate information as well, a sort of survival toolkit somewhat, and if you play, of course, your learning experience is enhanced. What I want to highlight also is that with my students, I always kept 2 levels of approaches. One was the scientific approach, and the other one was the emotional, playful one. The combination of the 2, the extreme combination of the 2, was actually the main goal. So to learn, but also then playing about this learning, and that's crucial. So they made a climate plan in any case. They did all the studies in any case. They studied the site in every scale of the project. Some of the students didn't know about the carbon cycle. And so there was also a lack of knowledge. So, yeah.
So what I get out of it, Cinco, Laura, also is to make use of playful elements in your curriculum, also to accelerate learning and build the bridge between the scientific domain and what's in your body and in your feelings. It can be an accelerator of learning, I think.
And we need, I think, also this emotional knowledge, because every time this project actually starts from a necessity I had. Every time reading the IPCC reports, every time looking, of the problems of climate change, whereas we always been designers and we always try to tackle with design the climate transition, making things, making plans, designing plans. So if we talk only about the problems, then this prevents us to act. So the emotional knowledge nowadays is crucial for the climate transition.
Thanks for that. Clementine.
Thank you very much. It was really nice, and nice that there were kids playing at the same time while you started. I was wondering, since the students are really at the center of this the way you constructed the course, like they're both learners but also teachers to the kids, what was their evaluation, or how did they feel? What did they report about what they learned and how they felt, and were they easy to get into the game, basically?
What do you mean?
Well, how did they react to this new pedagogy that you put in place? And did they feel like they learned about landscape architecture, about climate change, or about teaching, or about other things?
There was this cross-learning that was really evident, in each of the phases. Then this empowerment that they felt and commitment even to the kids. When you feel committed, you really, and you know that you are the ones that is going to class to teach, you need to be prepared. So they really felt this kind of condition that is also responsibility, let's say. So that's definitely a good learning, I think, for them. And also they learned how to play, because also to work with the power of playful imagination, sometimes it's something that students as well forget. We forget, they forget as well. Going outdoors, same things that we talked about together. So,
to follow up on this, Clementine, because there was my personal question, what were the expectations of these master students entering the course, and did it meet their expectations, or was there really something different for them?
I think they met the expectations. What they probably did not expect from the course was the fact of me being the director of the play. So really to step back, and we have this position of not being the teacher. It's a role that requires a little bit more, it's a more mature role, let's say, because sometimes even the students would think that you as a teacher, you are less empowered. So it's actually, they are more empowered, but the teacher is less empowered somewhat. So it changed really the relationships. That is something I did not expect, let's say. I knew about their empowerment. I didn't know about my stepping back, you know, this director.
Okay. Taking a look at the clock, I think if you want to have a further discussion with Laura, you'll be here for a few more moments, I think. Thank you so much for the Comenius project for presenting it so nicely. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for attending. I can highly recommend to take another sandwich. Twan is nodding, so we agree that it's high quality food, so please enjoy it. There will be next activities in the teaching lab here later. Take a look at the 100 days events, also very interesting. You were talking about responsibility. There is a whole series of students taking responsibility, so there will be an event soon on that as well. So, have a nice day. See you around.